for us to celebrate. And if you happen to be, if you happen to be a individual, a leader, and you are thinking, or maybe you have that feeling that there is more that you are called to do as a leader. Perhaps you're thinking about going into business for yourself and etc. This video is a Q&A just for you today. Feel free to ask me any questions as it relates to being in that transition where you know you want to do a bit more with your life, but you're not exactly sure in terms of what you want to do. Now, I want to say this is a very special day today for me. Personally, I'm so excited. This is my 6th year of business. Today is April the 21st, 2026, and April the 21st of 2020 is when I started Excite Excellence Incorporated, or when it was incorporated rather, here in the amazing Sunshine State of Florida. And I want to share with you any lessons that I have learned throughout the 6 years that may provide you with some insights, some strategies for you to consider as you're thinking about going into entrepreneurship specifically for yourself. Now, this channel itself heavily focuses in on those advanced communication skills and strategies that will help you to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. Now, with this being my business anniversary, we're going into a bit of a different topic, but I want to let you know I have a extremely very special once in a lifetime offer just for you. If you happen to be a woman in leadership, and perhaps you are in a very highly visible role, you are in front of a lot of people, the room is watching you, you've just been promoted, and you know the way you communicated previously is not going to be the way you need to communicate in the future. Maybe you freeze when you speak. Maybe you're not sure how to have those conversations and defend yourself. If you are challenged, then the high stakes communication intensive is the absolute best way for you to be able to prepare yourself for those situations. This intensive will completely change your life. It will completely change how you communicate. And majority of leaders, even senior leaders, have not had this level of a surgical like precision in terms of how they communicate. You're welcome to check this out. It will be available only until the 23rd in terms of the special promotion price right now. Feel free to take a look at exciteexcellence.org to learn more. Also, if you are a woman in leadership and you're trying to figure out, well, how do I get to that next role in my career? Maybe you're thinking about a business and you're not quite sure in terms of what you want to do. The same applies. I have an executive strategy session that will help you to develop that roadmap that you need to move forward. It's only going to be the price that's listed on the website just for the time being. On the 23rd, that price is going to go up also. So I share this with you because I want you all to be able to move forward. I know many of you have worked with me in the past, or many of you have been thinking about working with me. And if you've thought about it, this by far is the time for you to do it, because the promotional prices that are there right now will not be there after the 23rd of April. So I want to say hello to Abraham P222. Welcome back, Abraham. Good to see you again, friend. Abraham says, love your page. Keep it up, ma'am. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Let me know what questions you all have about making that transition into entrepreneurship. Today is my 6th year of business, and I want to make sure that I'm answering any questions that you all have. The fact that you all are part of my community and you're some of my amazing subscribers, or maybe you're just watching this video on the live, but specifically for my community, you know who you are, like Abraham. Abraham comes to the lives relatively often. I want to help you. And the fact that you're subscribed to the channel, I know you are exceptional, because the type of content I have here is not the silly nonsense, not the dancing, not the ridiculous things. I talk about serious conversations, how to help you communicate under pressure, which is a skill that majority of people do not know how to do. Therefore, I know you have a bigger calling on your life than what you are doing right now. And transitioning into entrepreneurship, starting something else on your own may be a part of that. And if you've thought about it and you're wondering well, how do I do it? Then feel free to ask me any questions. Ask me anything that I can do to support you in terms of questions you may have in terms of how do you start businesses and etc. I'm here to help you any way that I can. Just let me know how I can support you. Let me know what questions you have. Now, I'll share with you where I left off earlier today. If you watched the live earlier, I shared this morning, and you're welcome to take a look at the live. I talked about why I decided to go into business. Now, specifically, the reason why I decided to go into business had a lot to do with that particular time in my life. I was working at the highest level of my career. I was in a C-suite role at the time, and I found myself in a situation that came up to where I felt the tug, where I felt like the role I was in at that time, even though I was doing very well on it, that there was more for me to give. There was more for me to do in my life specifically, and it wasn't entirely just heavily focused on the role that I had at that time. That was my tug. If you want to learn more about my experience and what happened, feel free to take a look at the video from earlier today. Now, this evening, I want to dive into some of the mistakes, some of the things that I have learned, lessons that I have learned being an entrepreneur that many of you may not have thought about or may not have even considered as you are thinking about what do I do. Now, I do want to mention this. There's a lot of individuals that are C-suite executives, that are senior VPs, that have found themselves at the top of their career. And they wonder, just like I did, once you reach that top level, because I was a C-suite executive for many years, once you reach that level, there is a point in time when you say, what else is there for me? What else can I do? That is why you definitely want to watch this video. I want to say hello to Anna Laura Flores 8028. Hello, Anna. Hope you're doing well today. Let me know where you all are joining from in the big, beautiful world today, and what questions you have about potentially starting your own business or potentially doing something that's a little bit different than what you're doing right now. Feel free to put it in the comments below. Now, I shared with you why I decided to go into entrepreneurship. So let's talk about specifically what are some lessons that I learned that will probably be helpful for you to know too. Outside of setting up your business, depending on what country you live in, you'll have to take a look and see exactly what is the process for you to set your business up. So that's something that I can only speak to what happens in the United States of America. I cannot speak to what happens in other countries, but get a sense of what does it take for you to register a business in your country. Now, a lot of times, and we had this question come up today from Raj Kumar that asked specifically, how do you develop what you're going to do? For instance, Raj wanted to have a business that provided solutions to manufacturing. I mentioned to Raj this morning that you probably want to do something along the lines of consulting, because that sounds as if you're going to be consulting someone. And you have to determine who is your target audience. Whatever service it is that you plan on providing, whatever product you want to provide, whether you are doing a service-based business or you are doing a brick and mortar based business, meaning it is a storefront, you have products, you have inventory, you have building and all of that, you have to determine what exactly is it that you are going to be offering to the world. Now, if you are doing a service-based business like myself, then you have to think about who is your audience. And you have to think about this too for a brick and mortar business also. Who is your audience? Who are you going to serve? Now, many people get very much confused by who is your audience. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever started a business or wanted to start a business and you just didn't know who you need to talk to. Let me know. Typically, what the rule of thumb is, and I would say service-based business only because that's what my business is, you want to be able to communicate with that person that you are currently a couple of steps ahead of them. For example, if you are someone that is wanting to work in consulting and manufacturing, as Raj Kumar mentioned earlier today, then you may find yourself in a situation where you want to work with companies that are perhaps just starting out in their manufacturing journey in terms of their staffing and etc. You have been experienced in this field, and you may find yourself in a situation where you can actually provide them with some very high level expertise about manufacturing. That's one option. You want to be a bit ahead of your audience. So, for instance, in my case, I have worked as a C suite executive, I have worked as a director, I have worked as a manager, I have worked as an entrepreneur. Therefore, the people that most likely would benefit from me are individuals who are at that point in their career where either they're just starting out in their manager journey, they've been managers for a while and perhaps they're losing their influence, or they may be at the C suite executive role at the highest level of their career and they're thinking and trying to determine what is next for my life from here. I'm a bit ahead of that because I've done all of those things at this point in my career. So you want to be a couple steps ahead of your audience, whoever your audience is. Now, sometimes you may say, well, I want to work with this specific audience and I want to work with that specific audience. I want to tell you, your audience, and I hate to say this, but it's the truth. It's the truth because it happened to me. It happens to many of us. Your initial audience is probably not going to be your audience moving forward. I know, and I just told you to come up with your audience, but I'm just sharing with you lessons that I have learned as a business owner in terms of what happens in these situations specifically. Now, you may see my phone move for just a moment because my battery is low and I forgot to charge it. So I want to make sure I'm fully charged for our live today. Now, your audience may change. You may notice that it may change. Let me give you an example of what happened to me when I was just starting out as an entrepreneur. When I started out in 2020, my initial audience that I was working with were women in healthcare. That was my audience. I built my website, which is a whole another conversation depending on what questions you all have. I'll talk more about that. But I built a website completely around women that were in healthcare. Now, I personally at that time had not worked with a woman in healthcare in terms of my business, which was my first mistake. I probably shouldn't have did that because I put a lot of energy. I paid a lot to have the website developed. I paid a lot to buy pictures on iStock because I wanted to have the nicest pictures for my website, as you should as a service-based business. But I spent all this and that was not my audience. It just did not, even though I'm in healthcare and I'm a doctor and I've been a doctor for a long time, it did not work out for me. It just did not work out for me because that wasn't really who I was speaking to. Now, I found myself wondering, I thought I was speaking to women in healthcare to help them to become more confident and be able to do more in terms of their healthcare, in terms of their self-care, and being able to manage your time. But in actuality, my audience is a bit broader than that. And I found myself wanting to change my audience, and I decided to go into working with women that were professionals. And in this audience, there's a lot of women that are professionals. But as I started to work with that particular audience, I found that my audience was going to be even broader. It's going to be women in leadership roles, which is currently where I am. Now, the other part of this that I will tell you is that your audience will continue to evolve. You may find there's a certain type of individual you want to work with, and they may reach out to you specifically for assistance. But as my channel has grown, now, even though I specialize in working with women in leadership roles, my audience base includes a lot of men in leadership roles too. And it also includes individuals who are not leaders yet. I share this progression with you because a lot of times, if you're trying to start a service-based business, you will start off with something. You will start off with your audience. And I guarantee you that will change. And I say this because this is a lesson that I learned. I tend to beat myself up a bit because I thought, why is this changing? What am I doing wrong? But this is a natural evolution in your business. Your audience will start to change as you start to refine your message. And then you get to the point where you're pretty comfortable where you are. So for example, I know I specialize in working with women in leadership. Many of you know that. However, I have a lot of men in leadership on my channel and people that are not leaders yet. I feel very comfortable with this audience. Why? Because I know a lot of the high stakes, high pressure communication strategies I share with you will be able to be applicable to anyone because they are universal. But there are certain situations and circumstances that come up that do have more of an impact on women, which is why I want to make sure that they are adequately prepared for those situations when they come up. So your audience may change a bit as you are going through this process as an entrepreneur. I want to know from you, what are some other questions that you have specifically? And I will also share with you a couple of larger projects that I did in my business that seem to be very helpful for me. And it's something for you to consider potentially as you are going through this process as an entrepreneur. As I mentioned at the beginning, this for me, 6 years of business is a celebration. I'm so excited about it. And I appreciate each and every one of you for being a part of my journey. Many of you have been with me from day one. You've been with me since 2020. Many of you have just joined a couple years ago, and many of you have just joined yesterday. And I appreciate you all so much. You make the live process so fun, and just being an entrepreneur a joy to be because of you. And I appreciate you all so much. Now, what are some big initiatives that I felt that were very helpful to me as a business owner? Once I became comfortable knowing that my audience was going to shift and change, and I had to change the messaging so that I could include who I wanted to include, I found that I needed to make some changes. And some of the changes that I made, a lot of them happened last year. A lot of people will speak to you about social media. You need to be more visible, you need to post. I will say, to be quite honest with you, you do need to. And I know a lot of people think, I don't want to do social media. I don't want to get into it. I have to be honest with you here, and it took me a long time to actually figure this out. And I've just started to pick this up on my end for my business specifically. You probably all have seen that there's been a massive amount of posts coming out recently. But social media this is a part of having a business. This is a part of having a business. You will need to be on social media to a certain extent unless you are a complete referral based business. And if you are, that's fantastic. But when you're starting out and you need income, it might be a bit more challenging to focus to build your business model off of that. Social media is your friend. Being able to post strategically is very helpful, and getting a sense of what's going to work for you. When you are running a business, whether you are a brick and mortar or whether you are going to be in business as a service-based business like myself and many of us, I hate to say this. Well, I don't hate to say this. I don't hate anything. But I have to tell you and I have to be honest with you, volume is a big part of it. People may say, no, 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 I don't want volume. I just want just a certain type of person. Well, yes, you do want a certain type of person, but you're going to have a lot of conversations to get to that certain type of person. So do not be afraid of sending out a lot of messages or having a lot of networking events that you attend or interacting with a lot of people, only because there is a bit of the numbers game that will happen when you are starting your business as an entrepreneur, regardless of whether you're a service-based business or you're a brick and mortar business or you're selling a digital product or you're selling a product in general. There's a bit of volume there in order for you to start gaining traction. And the only way to do that or obtain that type of volume online is either through organic outreach, organic social media, where you're doing a post, people see it, they comment, or are interested in working with you, or paid ads. That's how you do it online. If you are doing more locally, then you have the option to be more visible, do speaking events, attend different types of social events or entrepreneurial events, and etc. Many of you have seen that I've attended several events here this past year, actually, and that's a great way for you to start to build your business as well when you are trying to get yourself out there initially. Now, some of the pivots, and I know this may be hard for some people who just only want to work from home, but I will tell you some of the major, I did major pivots last year in 2025. And the major pivots that I did, and as I mentioned, I'm just sharing with you just what worked for me, that in hopes that it helps you in some way, shape, or form. This is a different type of video, of course, not a normal instruction, but this is just me just talking to you as a friend. Now, the pivots I decided to do in my business included the following in 2025. I was already posting online, but I decided to double down on my YouTube. And I did not realize how much doubling down that I was actually doing until YouTube reached out to me to be a part of their live streamer research panel last year in May, because I was doing so many lives. I found what I want to do and I stuck with it. So I spent a lot of time on YouTube Live. Many of you, if you look back on my channel, look at it now, it has over a thousand videos. That is a rarity in the world of YouTube. There are not many channels that have over 1,000 videos on them. There's only a few of us do, and my channel is one of them. So I found being online, being live, handling those offensive conversations, those silly statements, those ridiculous situations that come up sometimes during the live, and being able to respond to them in those very high stakes, high pressure situations was very natural to me, and it allowed me to showcase my expertise so that you all can see it as well. Now, I do want to say hello to Brandon Palmer, V7U. Hello, Brandon. How you doing today? Welcome, welcome, friend. As I mentioned, I doubled down on YouTube Live last year. I had some personal things going on, some circumstances that I will share at some point in time, but I didn't have a choice. I had to keep my sanity, and being live was the best thing for me to do. The next thing that I did when I doubled down on, made some direct pivots in my business rather, was I took some time and I was able to stabilize. So I personally had been moving around a little bit, not by choice, but I finally made myself and my family settle here in South Florida. And I promised myself when I settle, I'm going to do a bit more with my business locally instead of being heavily dependent online. Now, I will tell you something. If you are a service-based business or even retail store or storefront or etc., you will likely gain a bit more traction with interacting with people in person than you do online. Why do you think that is? Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are about that. I'll share with you what I've experienced. When people meet you in person, there is an exchange of your energy. There's an exchange of how you conduct yourself. They see it instantly in terms of how you are. When you are online, sometimes it can be a bit harder for people to build that trust because they see you online. They don't know if you really are that way. And so it takes a lot of people a lot of time to build trust with you to say, oh, by the way, I want to work with you, or I want to invest in working with you, and this is what we want to do. That is a part of being online. And a lot of it comes down to you being yourself, posting, interacting, hosting lives. And if you ever need support with any of these, especially as it relates to lives, then you know where to go. Just contact me and let me know. But people have to get to have a sense, they have to have a sense of who you are and are you genuine. In the world today, and many of you already know this, there are a lot of influencers or business owners or content creators that portray themselves as one way, but when you have a conversation with them, they are completely the opposite. And I will tell you that I have had some of my clients that have worked with other individuals. Of course, I will not mention their names, but they have worked with other individuals who happen to be coaches or consultants. And they found that when they worked with them, they were completely different than what they thought they were online. And that is the reason why it is sometimes a bit harder to gain revenue and traction online initially, because people have to get a sense of, are you really genuine, or are you just trying to get me to purchase your product? And that's a real concern. We all have those concerns too. I mention this because being authentic and being yourself is going to be critically important. If you are not upbeat, happy, positive majority of the time, and you portray yourself that to be that way, there will be that one time someone interacts with you and they will say, "I this person is not who they act as if they are. I don't want to work with them." So just be yourself. If that's not how you are, don't fake it and act like you are someone that you're not. I personally did not have this problem whatsoever, but I tell you this because I have a lot of my clients that I've worked with that have worked with other people, and they have unfortunately fallen into that trap where they are sold basically, oh, it's good, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then when it comes time for additional support or just some additional guidance and etc., they they really do not receive what they were looking for. And this is one of the reasons why, with my clients specifically, and a lot of my clients watch my content here, they know that when I work with them, I'm here actually to support them. I genuinely want them to be very successful, and I provide ongoing support with my clients. I have many of my clients that I have worked with years ago that still reach out to me and text me this to this day and ask me questions about certain situations that are going on with their lives professionally, and they're trying to navigate like how should they do it, what should they do it, etc. So that support is really important, and being your authentic self is really important too. You have to do that, or people will not be able to, they're just not going to trust you, and you'll struggle in your business, and you'll find yourself saying, why did I do this? You just have to be yourself. You have to be yourself. So we talked about social media. So that was a pivot I made last year. So I made the pivot in terms of being live more on YouTube because I felt like that was my home and that's where I wanted to spend my time. And I wanted to be a business, a channel that actually had live high stakes communication, high pressure situations to discuss in a live setting that wasn't highly edited or highly academic in terms of its nature. I want it to be real with you and share with you what really actually happens in the world. Now, let me know what questions you all have as it relates to potentially starting a business. I'm sharing with you what I have learned over the past 6 years, and I'm also sharing with you what pivots I made last year to set me up for success this year. I talked about social media. That is a requirement. You're going to need to have that if you are going to be a business owner nowadays. This is just the world we live in now. The second thing that I did was I found myself to be in a more stable place where I could call South Florida home. I absolutely love it here. My kids love it here. And now I can embed myself in the community. What's the next thing I did? I started to attend events. Many of you know I attended the Aspire event earlier this year. I attended the Broward County Schools Business Expo event a couple weeks ago. There's a lot of local events that I'm trying to attend. And so I found that if you can balance online and offline, be able to make those connections, it will help you as an entrepreneur. Now, I will say this. Sometimes when you're building connections locally, you are playing the long game. What I mean by the long game may be specifically you're reaching out to an organization, a department, or etc. to assist them in some type of way with your service-based business. And you may not see any revenue from that immediately. That's fine. You still want to build relationships because if you're really trying to embed yourself in the community, try to build relationships. This is what this is all about. This is what small businesses are about, big businesses are about. We want to embed ourselves in the community and be a resource. So if you're going into the business setting where it's just, I just got to make money, I just want to make money, I want to make money, you can do that. And I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of people that do that and do just fine with themselves. But there comes a point in time where you do want to start building relationships. And building relationships will help you in the long game. There's two games you have to play as a business owner. You have the short game and the long game. The short game is when you need money. I need money now, right? I have bills to pay. I have things to take care of. I have business expenses. I have a team I have to pay. That's the short game. So there's different ways to go about it with the short game, but the long game specifically is going to be your contacts, your connections, your conversations you have with people that you may not have anything come out of it, but it could turn into a very meaningful opportunity in the future. So I decided to do that. I decided to participate in events. The other two pivots I did this, well, actually three. I'm going to go into three and then I'll wrap up the live. The other pivot I did this year, which is something that you do not see happen a lot, is that I decided to make the big investment to wrap my vehicle. Now, most of the time, consultants, executive coaches, and some service-based businesses, you will rarely see their vehicles wrapped, because most of the time people see wrapped vehicles that are more of your commercial type of businesses or etc. I decided to wrap my vehicle because I knew I wanted to be here. And I have a whole video I'm going to hopefully get ready for you all so you understand about the wrap process. If this is something you're thinking about doing, learn from the things that I did correctly, learn from the mistakes that I made that I was able to adjust. But wrapping my vehicle was huge for me. I wanted to make sure that everywhere that I went, people knew who I was, they knew who my business was, and they knew what my offer was. Many of you have seen my pictures of the wrap vehicle. If not, you're welcome to take a look at it on Instagram. It should be here on YouTube also. But wrapping my vehicle was a big pivot for me. That was basically me saying, I am a business owner. I am here. I'm taking this seriously. So seriously that I've wrapped my vehicle. Now, you can do other options of wrapping, okay? Many people, what I have noticed, and as I mentioned, I'm just sharing with you what has been successful and what I've seen. Many people will say, I don't want to wrap my whole car. I don't want to wrap my whole entire vehicle. I'm just going to get the little magnets. The magnets that you can just stick on your door, just put them on the door and drive around like that. You can do that. The thing with the magnets are, you have to make sure your car is magnetized. If your car is not magnetized or can receive a magnet, you cannot use a magnet. In my case, I personally have a truck. I have a Jeep Gladiator, and therefore I didn't think the magnetized would look that well on the truck because it's a bigger truck. The squares are usually kind of small, and I said that's probably not going to look. It's not going to match the car. If you have a Ford Focus or something like that, you're probably fine. But if you have a bigger vehicle, you might want to think about that. But nonetheless, my truck specifically is not magnetized. And I could not magnetize, put a magnet on there if I want to. But I do see a lot of business owners do that. They do take it off. Sometimes the business owners, they may say, I don't want to have my car fully wrapped. It may be something that they just personally don't want to do. It may be something financially they just cannot do at this time, but they want to have something there. So a magnet can work well for you if you are trying to make yourself visible. The key with entrepreneurship is visibility. I had a wonderful conversation with Sharice Moore. She is a content creator. She's a business owner here as well on YouTube. And one of the things that we were talking about, and this is about a couple months ago now, she talked about visibility. And visibility was very important. People will not know who you are unless you put yourself out there, which is the reason why I decided to wrap my vehicle. I decided to do a big wrap, a decal wrap for it is what it's called, with my business information. Now, I do want to say one thing. I do want to say that the wrapping of my vehicle, I changed the logo of my business in the middle of the wrap process. Well, actually, I would say somewhat in the middle of it. I changed it last minute. It was a big decision that I made, and I'm so glad that I changed the logo to what my current logo is now. It is much different than the mountain I had before. Now it is reflective of my brand and myself. If you don't know the logo, take a look at it. I probably will do some posting on why I made that change when I did, because I could have easily wrapped my vehicle in the old logo, changed my logo, and would have been very frustrated with myself by making that change because it does cost money to wrap a vehicle. It is not free. And I would have been pretty upset with myself. So I'm glad and I'm thankful to God that I actually made that change. The other pivot that I made specifically when it relates to your business, and I'll say one more pivot. I decided to become more visible by doing speaking engagements. There are several speaking engagements. I don't want to list them off just yet that I've applied for, hoping that I will be accepted. But find those speaking engagements that are coming up or look for organizations that may be looking for speakers and reach out to them. If you can be that person that speaks and talks about how you can help people, a lot of times these events, they don't want you to pitch your product. They don't want you to pitch your service. Just come and provide value. I will let you know that being able to speak in front of people is one of the fastest ways for you to be able to gain more traction in your business because it adds more visibility and people get to see you and they get to know you. Being able to speak in front of people is critically important, and that's the pivot that I've made in my business as well. My other pivot that I wanted to share with you all, and this is one I just made a couple actually lists over the weekend, is I thought about my business and I thought about where am I going. I have a lot of things in mind for my business and how I can support all of you that live in different parts of the world. And I just decided to make my claim. So my mission here is not only to help you communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. If you are a woman in leadership, or you're a man in leadership, or you're thinking about leadership, that is a part of what I do. I specialize in helping women in leadership because I know there are some aspects of communication and being the first woman or one of one or one of a few that we are still navigating in different types of roles that may have been more occupied by men in the past, etc. However, I have made my second mission. And my second mission is to create the largest high stakes, high pressure communication content library for leaders on planet Earth. Now, that sounds like a very, very big goal, and yes, it is. But as an entrepreneur, there has to be something about you that is completely different than everybody else. What is it? What is it that makes you unique? What is it that makes you special? I have expertise in those very high stakes, high pressure situations. And yes, with having over 1,000 videos here on my YouTube channel, I'm just getting warmed up. I plan on having the largest content library for high stakes, high pressure communication for leaders on planet Earth. That is my mission. That is what I'm trying to do. When you are thinking about entrepreneurship, there has to be something to make you stand out. And sometimes you're going to look a little bit off. People are going to think, "Are you serious? Are you really going to do that?" And a lot of people talk about this a lot in different settings. I've heard Grant Cardone talk about this. I've heard a lot of major influencers say, when you're an entrepreneur and you have these big goals, people think you're a little bit crazy. Like they think, like, "Are you serious? Are you really going to do that?" But that is what your vision is all about, friends. That's what your vision is all about. Sometimes people may not understand it. They may look at it and say, "That's crazy, that's too much." But ultimately, there has to be something about you that is so unique that when people stumble upon your content, when they interact with you, they can only say, "Wow, this person is amazing. I want to learn more from them." I hope that this business celebration has given you something to think about as it relates to becoming an entrepreneur. And as I mentioned, this conversation I'm sharing with you is for all of you as my audience. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate my clients that have been able to support my business. You all make life extremely fun for me outside of my kids and just being in this role. I appreciate you so much. And I hope that you gained some insight today. And if you have any questions about anything, maybe as I mentioned, you're at the top of your career. You're that C-suite. You're that senior VP. And you're just thinking, "Well, how can I do this?" That's why you want to sign up for an executive strategy session with the business anniversary promotion I have offered earlier at the beginning of the live. It will only be here until April the 23rd. Or if you know you have the big vision, you know what you want to do, but how can you communicate that to the world, then you absolutely want to reach out to me for a high stakes communication intensive that is at a tremendous promotion, over $1,500 of a promotion compared to the normal price, that will only be there until April 23rd. So there's a lot of ways I can support you, but this video intent is just to celebrate and just to share with you what's helped me as an entrepreneur. What are some things you might want to consider? And if you want to get some additional insight, just put it in the comments below. I'm here to support you. Just ask me any questions. I want to help you any way that I can. Feel free to like this video and share it with a friend, maybe somebody you know that's trying to transition into entrepreneurship. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now.